Okay, I'm going to start with a pretty direct question, and I want you to be really honest with yourself for a second. Think about it. Was it just one? Maybe two? Or are you kind of losing count? Well, here's the wild part. For most of us, we don't even realize we're doing it.
Believe it or not, research from the University of Massachusetts shows that the average person tells about 1 to 2 lies every single day. And get this, another study found that 60% of us will lie at least once in a simple 10-minute conversation. So this tells us the real question isn't if we lie, but why it seems to be such a fundamental part of being human.
And that's exactly what we're going to break down today. We're going to look at lying not as some moral flaw that only bad people have, but as this incredibly complex behavior that's literally woven into our biology, our evolution, and our psychology.
So where does this all even come from? Let's dive right into the science. And the first thing we got to ask is, are we the only ones doing it?
And the answer is a huge, resounding no, not even close. Deception is a survival tool all across the animal kingdom. You've got cuttlefish changing their skin color to trick predators, orchid mantises that look exactly like flowers to lure in their next meal. Even our own cousins, chimpanzees, have been caught actively hiding food from each other. Deception, it turns out, is an ancient strategy for staying alive. But for us humans, it's on a whole other level. Evolutionary psychologists actually argue that our ability to lie is a sign of higher intelligence. It requires what they call a theory of mind. That's the ability to get that other people have thoughts and beliefs that are different from yours. So you have to see the world from their eyes, then build an entire fake reality in your head, and then you have to sell it. It's a pretty complex cognitive leap that most kids don't even make until they're about 3 or 4 years old. Now, let's peek inside our heads for a second. When you tell the truth, it's pretty straightforward for your brain. But when you lie, oh boy, your brain kicks into overdrive. The prefrontal cortex, your brain's CEO, has to work double time to push down the truth while it builds up the lie. At the same time, the amygdala lights up. That's what creates that pang of guilt or fear, the reason your heart starts racing. And all the while, your limbic system, the emotional core, is desperately trying to manage this whole internal chaos. But here's the really crucial part, and a famous study showed this perfectly. The more you lie, the easier it gets for your brain. Just look at this chart. It shows the response from the amygdala, our guilt center. The first lie, it's firing on all cylinders. By the 10th lie, it's calmed down a bit. By the 100th, it barely even reacts. Our brains literally become desensitized to lying. It's this dishonesty escalation that explains how tiny little white lies can sometimes spiral into huge, life-altering deceptions. Okay, so now we kind of get how our brain does it. But not all lies are the same, right? So let's jump into the psychology of it all, the different kinds of lies we tell, and the real reasons we're telling them. Psychologists have broken lies down into these 6 main categories. You've got your classic white lies, the ones to spare someone's feelings. Then there are self-serving lies, told to get an advantage. We all know protective lies, told to stay out of trouble. Fun fact, that's the first kind of lie kids learn to tell. Then there are social lies, like saying, I'm fine when you're not, just to keep things moving. On a more serious note, there are compulsive lies, which can be a symptom of a deeper issue. And finally, you have the really subtle but powerful lie of omission, where you're not saying anything false, you're just leaving out the most important part of the truth. So what's really going on underneath all of this? Well, a huge driver is just fear. Fear of being judged, fear of getting in trouble. We also lie to shape how people see us, to impress them, which often comes from a place of low self-esteem. And sometimes we lie to protect other people, which is a sort of misguided altruism. And then you get to the darker end of the spectrum, where people lie to gain power and control over a situation or a person.
Now, we've spent a lot of time talking about the lies we tell other people. But what if the most common, and maybe the most dangerous lie in the world, is the one we tell ourselves?
This question really makes you look inward, doesn't it? Because for all our worrying about being deceived by others, the most profound lies are often the ones we direct at ourselves.
The answer is self-deception. Yep, the stories we tell ourselves to protect our own ego. Oh, I'm fine. This job isn't that bad. I'll start that diet tomorrow. These little internal monologues are way more common and maybe way more damaging than any lie we could ever tell another person.
So how does our brain pull this off? Well, it's often because of a phenomenon called cognitive dissonance. That's the super uncomfortable feeling we get when something we did clashes with our idea of who we are. So what does the brain do? Instead of changing our self-image, which is really hard and painful, it just twists reality. It creates a new story that justifies what we did, all to protect our ego.
It's like having your own personal spin doctor living in your head. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. Look, a little self-deception might give you a temporary confidence boost, but it has a serious dark side. When it becomes a habit, it completely shuts down any chance for personal growth. I mean, you can't fix a problem if you refuse to even admit it exists, right?
So, if lying is so baked into our nature and so damaging, especially to ourselves, what's the real cost? And maybe more importantly, how do we start to find our way back to living with more honesty?
The long-term price of deception is incredibly high. In our relationships, it absolutely shatters trust, the very foundation. Mentally, just the cognitive load of keeping all your stories straight is a direct route to anxiety and depression. There was even this fascinating study from Notre Dame that connected telling fewer lies to better physical health. People reported fewer headaches and sore throats. And at the end of the day, every lie just chips away at our integrity, moving us one step further away from our authentic selves.
But here is the good news. Honesty is a skill. It's a muscle you can actually build. So how do we do it? Well, there's a path. First, we have to create safe environments where telling the truth isn't punished. Second, we gotta practice self-awareness. Just start noticing your own little lies without beating yourself up about it. Third, work on building genuine self-esteem. When you truly accept yourself, you don't feel the need to impress anyone anymore. And finally, learn tactful honesty. Remember, the truth doesn't have to be a blunt instrument. You can always deliver it with kindness.
And all of this brings us to one final, really big question. If our whole society is built on a foundation of trust, but we've also seen that some lies, like those little social lies, are what keep daily life running smoothly, could our world actually function with 100% total honesty? It's something to think about. Maybe the real goal isn't absolute brutal truth, but a more conscious and compassionate integrity that always starts with being a little more honest with ourselves. What do you think?